Yesterday we were talking about how you went to Drew Holloway on May 31st.
Yes.
And that was the boy's idea?
I don't remember specifically whose idea it was. It was just a general idea.
Were you looking for a car at that time?
At that time, yes.
And besides going to Drew Holloway, you made other attempts to look for a car?
Yes, but I never had a specific car in mind or made any financing arrangements on a
You
car.
went to Coast Pontiac 6 days later, did you not?
I don't remember. Maybe.
You don't remember if you went, or you don't remember it was 6 days later?
Where's Coast Pontiac?
Portsmouth.
Yeah, yes, I did do that with Tracy Collins, I believe.
And you went with Tracy Collins?
I think so.
And you had your car appraised?
I might have, yes.
And you told them you didn't have to make any financing arrangements because you were going to pay cash?
But I don't know, maybe.
And at that time, you'd already gotten insurance money, to some extent in this case, correct?
Some, yes.
90,000,
Yes.
and you were still waiting for the $50,000 policy to come in?
Yes.
Now, yesterday, you talked a little bit about divorce. You were asked by Mr. Toomey that if you were to get divorced, what actually would you lose? I think you said you shared furniture, $4,000 to $6,000 in savings, correct?
Approximately, yes.
And you each had your own car, correct?
Yes, we did.
Now, if in the spring of 1990, you had gotten a divorce from Greg Smart, the affair might have become public, right?
If I had gotten a divorce,
Yeah.
if I made it public, I suppose.
Or if Greg made it public.
Yeah.
And if your affair had become public, what do you think would have happened at Whitacunnet High School? Or, I'm sorry, at SAU 21, where you were?
I would assume that I wouldn't be working there anymore.
You had lost your job, right?
Probably.
And how do you think it would have affected your opportunity to look for additional jobs in school districts, knowing that you had an affair with a 15, 16-year-old boy?
I doubt that I would apply to another school district, but that wouldn't mean that I couldn't get a job anywhere else, ever.
Do you think this would have helped or hurt your professional reputation at that time?
Hurt?
How do you think your family and friends would think about you essentially taking part in ruining the marriage that you had for less than a year by having a sexual affair with a 15, 16-year-old boy?
I don't know how my family and friends would feel.
Do you think your family or friends would approve?
Probably not.
You seem unsure.
I mean, I don't think that they would stop being my friends and never talk to me again, but
No, but the question was whether or not they'd approve, and you say probably not. Do you have any doubt in your mind that they would look upon this as quite inappropriate behavior for you?
well, I'm not the first person in America that ever had an affair.
But that wasn't my question. My question was, don't you think they would look at you and say this is quite inappropriate behavior?
Yes.
But if Greg was dead, you wouldn't have to expose the affair, would you?
No. Unless, like, this happened.
And you could keep the affair secret as long as you chose, right?
I don't know that. I don't know that Bill wouldn't have exposed it, or Cecilia wouldn't have, or...
And Bill and Cecilia were the only people who were part of your inner circle at this time who knew about the affair.
Apparently not. According to Bill's testimony, JR knew, Pete knew, Frank Daly knew, Sarah Thomas knew.
And then you've come into court and now admitted it because all those people know, right?
No. I've admitted this affair because it's the truth, and that's what I'm telling right now.
And now you've decided to tell the truth.
Yes.
Let's go back to where we left off yesterday. I think one of the last questions I had asked you yesterday was, you said that you told Cecilia Pierce on June 13th, 1990, that you knew about the murder.
Yes.
And that was a total fabrication on your part in order to try and get Cecilia Pierce to talk, correct?
I told her that I had known about it beforehand, which was a fabrication.
And that's what you wanted her to know, so you might be able to get information from Cecilia Pierce.
Yes.
And you now know, testifying, that Cecilia Pierce went to the police on June 14th, June 15th, and gave them all sorts of information on this case, correct?
Yes.
And as you sit here today, you know that the information Cecilia Pierce gave to the police on June 14th and June 15th inculpated you in this crime.
Yes.
So now, testifying before this jury, you say to us, the day before, I told Cecilia Pierce I was involved, or I knew about the murder before, right?
Right.
And is that the first time you ever told Cecilia Pierce that you had anything to do with the murder?
I didn't tell her that I had something to do with it. I told her that I had known about it.
Okay, so why don't you tell the members of the jury everything you told Cecilia Pierce that you knew about the murder?
I just told her that I had I had known about the murder before it was going to happen.
So that's the only thing you told her?
Yes.
Only knew about
Well,
it?
there was a conversation afterwards.
Okay, what's the conversation afterwards?
I told her that, and she said, how come Bill didn't tell me that you knew about it? And I said, why, you knew about it? And she said, yes. And then she went on to talk about a couple things that I had never heard about beforehand.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what Cecilia Pierce told you that you had never heard about beforehand?
That there was a prior attempt on Greg's life.
Okay, so you're saying June 13th.
There's a couple things. Do you want me to go through all of
Yes,
them?
I'm asking you. Prior attempt, what else?
She had told me that there had been a time that she had gone to look for a gun with Bill at Papagino's. And she had told me that Raymond was with Bill the first time. And
else?
that they had taken my car.
Anything else?
That Bill had done it, and that Pete and JR were with him. But see, I can't really remember because there was a lot of things going around in the newspapers at the same time too, and some of the things she was telling me were also in the paper, so I'm not sure what exactly came out when.
And this is all the information you got from Cecilia Pierce before?
Oh, and she told me that they had dropped gloves at the scene. She said gloves, more than one.
Where was she getting all this information?
I had assumed that Bill had told her.
So what you're telling this jury today is that Cecilia Pierce and Bill Flynn are having all these conversations about the murder of your husband, which you know absolutely nothing about. Is that it?
Yes, they testified to that also.
Right. They also testified that you knew all about it and were part of it.
Right.
That's the part you're saying no.
Right.
Okay. And you're telling this jury that the murder of your husband's occurs, and Cecilia Pierce, who's a good friend of yours, for the whole year and a half and all through that summer, never says anything to you about it until 2 days after the boy's arrested.
I didn't say she's never said anything to me about it. She said we talked about it almost every day, like I talked to everybody about this.
And you talked about it every day. She never once told you, hey, you know, I'm really sorry your husband's dead, but I think I can help you here figuring out who it was.
No. Well,
Okay,
she
so
did say that she was sorry Greg was dead.
Okay, so what you're telling this jury is that Cecilia Pierce intentionally withheld information from you concerning the murder of your husband.
Probably because she had some involvement herself.
Okay, so what you're telling this jury is Cecilia Pierce wanted your husband dead.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Well, you just said she had some involvement. I mean,
Well,
why do you think...
in procuring a
Let me finish the
firearm.
question, okay? And then you can answer. Why do you think Cecilia Pierce had involvement in the death of your husband?
I didn't think she had any direct involvement as far as I didn't believe that she was there on the night of the murder, but I believe she had some knowledge of it.
Okay. And you think Cecilia Pierce would intentionally withhold this information from you and from the police and never clue you in?
Yes.
And why would she do that?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
And you have no idea, as you sit here today, I mean, you had no...
I have an idea now.
And, oh, that's what you told us yesterday, that she wanted to be the center of attention.
No, my idea now is that she had her own involvement in this in procuring a firearm with Bill, therefore she was trying to protect herself.
So the way that Cecilia Pierce was going to protect herself was not going to come in and tell the police, hey, I tried to get a firearm, let me tell you about Bill Flynn who did this murder and all that stuff. Her way of protecting herself was to come in and make up this entire fabrication about your involvement to save her skin about a firearm.
It wasn't an entire fabrication.
Excuse me, Ms. Smart,
No,
I'll let you
sorry.
answer the question. I won't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt my question, okay?
I'm sorry.
It's difficult for Bill.
Did you
He
finish?
came in with this entire fabrication just to get you in trouble, to wrongly send you to jail, to wrongly accuse you of murder, to falsely accuse you of everything, match her wits against yours because she tried to get a firearm top jeans.
No, everything she said was not an entire fabrication because she did tell the police that I had known about the murder beforehand, and I did tell her that.
How do you know she told that to the police?
How do I know that? Because she just said that on the stand, and plus I read it in the paper
When did you read in the paper?
after I was arrested.
So after you were arrested, now you're starting to put together what Cecilia Pierce had done, right?
I was trying to put this case together from the day Greg was murdered.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday and how you were trying to put it together and how you helped the police put it together, right?
No, I don't know
called the
that
police over to your house to talk about a chip on the wall. You
Yes.
pointed out to the police a dented candlestick.
Yes.
You did all those things, right?
Yes, I
You're really
did.
going out of your way to tell the police everything they should need to know to try and solve this, right?
Yes,
Is that right?
yes, except for the affair.
Except for the affair, right?
Right, I was ashamed of the affair. I still am today.
Let's now, on 6/19, you talk to Cecilia Pierce, right?
On the telephone, yes.
Yeah, okay. And you were talking to Cecilia Pierce. Well, your plan now is to try and get more information, right?
Not over the phone, it wasn't.
Well, just in general with Cecilia Pierce, correct?
No, not at June 19th. My plan was to try and stop her from going to the police and turning me in.
Okay, that's only because it was on the phone.
No, that was my plan everywhere. That was my plan during the body wire conversations also.
All right, so your plan switches.
I told you my plan switched on June 13th when
Okay,
she...
so June 13th, what's your plan?
My plan was originally, when the day started, to get more information from her. And by the time the day was over, she had told me that she was scared and that she was going to go to the police. And she was...
Told you Bill had done it?
Objection, Your Honor, you interrupted her.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm almost finished. And she had told me that she was going to the police and she was going to tell them that we, meaning she and I, knew about the murder beforehand. And of course, I automatically panicked because I didn't want her to do that. So my intention from there on out was to try and talk her out of going to the police.
So why didn't you go to the police before her and straighten the whole mess out? Why didn't you go to the police and say, hey, you know, I was just talking to Cecilia, oh my God, she knows Bill, this kid did it. I was wrong from the beginning. I'm really embarrassed about my affair. Please don't tell anybody about it. But now you can solve the murder of my husband. And now you can tell the Smarts how their son died. Now you can tell the world how this senseless thing has a sense to it. But you didn't go to the police on June 13th after talking to Cecilia, correct?
Because I was scared, I was afraid, and I had heard rumors that I was going to be arrested, and I was afraid, yes.
All right. Now, I didn't really ask you why, but I'll gladly have you tell us
When the
why.
questions...
Your Honor, this question started.
This started with what?
Oh, I thought it was yes or no, but okay. You didn't go, no, and then the reason was why?
Because I was scared and I was afraid.
Scared and afraid of this 15-year-old girl.
No, I was scared and afraid of this entire murder. And I was scared and afraid and confused of everything that was going on and all the rumors that I was hearing.
And you thought the best way to solve that, the best way to deal with this fear, the best way to handle this confusion and all your fears is not honesty is the best policy. Go to the police and tell them everything and let them sort it out, because in the end, you know you're only telling the truth and nothing will happen. Your decision is to withhold information and to start playing mind games with Cecilia.
Yes, at the time, that was my conclusion.
Okay. Now, on June 19th, you had phone call conversations with Cecilia Pierce, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, you tell Cecilia Pierce, if they ask you to get a lie detector test, which I doubt they will, then you just say you're going to get yourself a lawyer first. And any lawyer will tell you not to.
Right.
Okay. Did it ever occur to you to encourage Cecilia Pierce to take a lie detector test, to say something to Cecilia Pierce like, hey, just go talk to them. Don't worry about the lie detector test. You can handle that thing. Just give them a statement. Because then you would know, of course, that the police would find something out about the murder, right? I mean, if you encourage her to take the lie detector test,
Right.
police might know who killed your husband.
Right, but should be on the lie detector test saying that I was having an affair and that I knew about it beforehand and all those things, which I didn't want her
Okay,
to say.
so why don't you just be honest with the jury and tell us it was more important to you that this affair, which would link you to Bill, which would link you to the murder, not come out over all this expression on your part that I'm obsessed with solving this crime, I'm obsessed with finding out who murdered my husband, but you're not so obsessed that you're willing to tell the police what you know, are you?
I wanted to solve it in my own mind, in my own life first.
Okay, and then what were you going to do, make a citizen's arrest?
No, I wasn't. At some point, obviously, I would have gone to the police with it.
So Pamela Smart, a 23-year-old student teacher, was going to use her own investigation skills, do her own investigation, not tell the police what she knows, talk to Cecilia Pierce, go out and talk to whoever else she knows, and then, of course, write a report, mail it in, and what were you going to do?
I'm going to object to the form of these questions. They're multi-part questions that they can't be answered yes and no. Numerous assumptions. They're essentially speeches.
Cross-examination.
Cross-examination, Judge.
First of all, I'm not a teacher. And second of all, yes, that was my intention, to figure it out on my own. My husband was murdered. I was not thinking rationally at the time. And unless you've gone through something like this, then maybe you can't understand.
So in other words, now what you're saying is this talk with Cecilia is the product of some irrational behavior on your part?
I'd say.
So it's not a conscious decision to find out information from
It was both. It was a very confused state.
Now, so later on in the same phone call conversation, you say to Cecilia Pierce, you're talking about the OJ video. She says she's looking for her copy. And you say, well, the Department of Citrus doesn't like the video anyways, you know? And Cecilia says, but I told him that the superintendent had all the copies. Talking about somebody in the press who wanted a copy. And you say, but according to JR, Raymond and Ralph said, it doesn't come out on the tape, and you say, well, that's Raymond and Ralph. You know what I mean? Just say you don't, and that's it, you know? And Cecilia says, yep. And you say, I mean, they can't convict him and arrest him on the word of another person. And Cecilia says, well, like you said, they can always switch it around and say that Raymond and Ralph did it. And you say, right, and that's it, you know? Raymond. How would Raymond and Ralph know anything, you know? Because maybe somebody told them that, or that somebody else said that they did, you
Your
know?
Honor, is this a question or is he reading it?
I'm getting to the question, Your Honor. It's the foundation.
It appears to me what he's doing is putting in a transcript. If he wants to put in a transcript, he should do it through a witness.
Judge, I have specific questions designed to be statement that she says on this case.
Objection is overruled.
I don't want to give it out of context, I'm trying to give the jury the full context. The last statement you said, and I'll repeat it, is right, and that's it, you know? Raymond, how would Raymond and Ralph know anything, you know? Because maybe somebody told them that, or somebody else said that they did, you know what I mean? They can't, you're not going to get convicted of murder on someone else's opinion, you know what I mean? Like if you were missing that night or something like that, how do you know what is according to JR?
What was the statement that I said about JR?
You said, but according to JR, Raymond and Ralph said.
Right.
And then you say, well, that's Raymond and Ralph. You know what I mean? Just say you don't, and that's it. You know. I mean, didn't you tell us yesterday that when JR and Pete and Bill were at your house, you went upstairs because Bill said leave us alone. And you stayed upstairs for 45 minutes, right?
Right, and according to JR meant according to what I had heard that JR was saying, because I had also heard what Ralph and Raymond were saying, and I had heard what the entire town of Seabrook was saying, and what the police were saying, and what the newspapers were saying.
And what did you hear was what JR saying?
I heard that JR was saying that Ralph and Raymond had done the murder.
You heard this from JR?
No, I heard it from Cecilia. Cecilia said, I heard JR was saying up in ADC that Ralph and Raymond had done the murder.
So on June 13th, what time of day? I mean, on June 19th, right?
Right?
Right. JR has been in ADC for 3-4 days, and you're saying rumors have gotten
On
back?
June 19th, he's been there for 9 days.
All right, so 9 days. I think the rest of June 11th, so it's 8 days, right?
Right.
You're saying rumors have already gotten back to you, what JR is saying at ADC.
Absolutely, rumors were getting around about everything.
And you're saying that JR was saying what about Raymond and Ralph?
Like I said, JR never said this directly to me, but I had heard that JR was saying that Raymond and Ralph had committed the murder themselves and were blaming it on Bill, Pete, and JR.
I'm sorry?
Raymond
So
and...
why would you say to Cecilia, just say you don't, and that's it, you know? I mean, why are you telling...
Because I'm telling her to say that she doesn't know anything.
Okay, and then later on, when Cecilia says to you, well, like you said, they can always switch it around and say that Raymond and Ralph did it.
Right, because that's what I had said. JR can say whatever he wants up in ADC. I don't know what he's saying. They can always switch it around and say Raymond and Ralph did it.
Why are you telling this to Cecilia Pierce?
Because we had had discussions previous to this about it.
About what?
About the possibility of Raymond and Ralph doing the murder.
And so now, this time, after Cecilia Pierce has told you on June 13th that Bill Flynn has done the murder, which is news to you, 5-6 days later, you're now saying that you're talking about somebody else may have done the murder?
Yes, I did not want to believe Bill Flynn committed this murder.
So there's nothing anybody could have done to convince you that Bill Flynn had committed this murder?
At that point, no.
And for that reason,
I still, even after his arrest, didn't believe that he had done it.
because Bill Flynn's not the kind of guy who's going to go off and mastermind a murder, is he?
I don't know.
Sorry?
Apparently, yes, he pleaded guilty to the crime.
But you never thought that, right? I mean, your opinion of Bill Flynn, you couldn't do that.
Murder someone?
Right.
No, I didn't think so.
So this jury, you're going to say, well, yes, now it did that.
He said he did it. I don't think he'd plead guilty to a crime if he wasn't guilty.
Now, when you say to Cecilia Pierce, they can't, you're not going to get convicted of murder on someone else's opinion. Who are you talking about? Who's the they? The police?
She said, I believe Bill, Pete, and JR were possibly going to say that she had known about the murder beforehand and that she was worried that if they said that, the police would arrest her.
So you're giving her comfort at this point.
Right, I told you, I was doing everything I could to try and get her not to go to the police.
And at this point, it was strictly because of the affair.
No, I said earlier that it was also because I had told her that I had known about the murder beforehand, that I didn't want her to say that.
I mean, was it your biggest fear you were going to get wrongly accused that Cecilia Pierce went to the police?
That's what happened, that's why I'm sitting here today.
Right, so you don't think it was more important back then to go to the police and straighten out first, put your embarrassment aside, and say, hey, before this goes any further, let me tell you what happened. You don't think that was important to do you?
I wish I would have made that decision way back then and none of us would be here today.
Is that what you want this jury to believe?
Yes,
That if you
I want
would-
this jury to believe the truth.
And they will make that decision, right?
I hope so.
And that would be based upon all the different times you said you were telling the truth, but in fact, you kept things to yourself, right?
I have said to this jury that I did keep things from the police. I've not denied that. I have not denied that I was trying to hide an affair. You're absolutely right. I did not want the whole United States of America to know that I had had an affair.
But you were willing to risk being wrongly accused. In your version of what's happening, you would risk the murderer go free. You would risk you being wrongly accused. You even said yesterday that you thought Bill Flynn was wrongly arrested because they heard the affair, and you were willing to risk that.
I wasn't willing to risk that. I was scared, and I was trying to make decisions, and I was 22 years old, and I made the wrong decisions.
I mean, isn't it possible that the other side of the coin, what's really happening here is If Cecilia Pierce does go to the police, Cecilia Pierce might tell what she really knows, and Cecilia Pierce might be telling exactly what she told this jury when she testified, that you knew about it from the beginning and were all part of it, right?
Because that would be a lie,
In your opinion.
in my
And
opinion.
that's what you want this jury to believe, right?
Yes.
Now, Cecilia Pierce hangs up the phone. She tells you that the police are coming over, right?
I guess.
And then you call her back a few
Right.
moments later, right?
Right.
And you call her back, and one of the things you say to her, you say, they're on trial, and that's it. So you just, answer the question, and that's it. They're going to try and get you to talk and to confess, and you know they're going to say, we know you know, and all that. Try and make you nervous, but all you have to do is just maintain the same story, and that's it. You don't know, and that's it, And as far as where you were that night, I would get the story straight, so that they don't get suspicious and wonder where you were and all that, But just answer their question and don't offer any information, She says, yeah, I know that. I don't know. I'm nervous because, the TV keeps saying they're going to arrest the girl for driving them up.
Right.
You say all this you call Cecilia Pierce back to tell her, don't confess.
Right.
You call them back, just answer the questions, don't offer any information.
Right.
Did you ever think to say to Cecilia Pierce, look, don't tell them about the affair, but tell them what you know about Bill?
No.
Never entered your mind.
No, because then she would have said that I had known about the murder beforehand. And what I was talking about getting her story straight was when she had originally gone to the police, and they had come to her, I guess, and they asked her where she was the night of the murder. And she had told them that she was at work at Papagino's, and she found out later that she was really at her aunt's house. And I told her that she better get the story straight, because it was the truth. That wasn't a lie.
When did she tell you this?
Shortly after the murder sometime. I think she said her mother had told the police that she was at Papagino's that night, and she wasn't really, and she wasn't trying to lie. Her mother wasn't trying to lie either, but I just figured that if she got that straightened out, then they wouldn't call Papagino's and find out she wasn't there and then think she was involved, like at the murder scene or something.
And on a very few moments later,
Move to page number.
page 3, Q2. You say to Cecilia, she's worried about being arrested because the paper said the girl was going to be arrested.
Right,
You remember you tell her she didn't even have a car, it's not going to be her? Remember telling her that?
right.
And
I
you
was
said,
trying to calm her down.
And you say, or wherever it was. But you have to realize that if the police were going to arrest someone, it would probably have happened already. So obviously that was just a false report. Because by the time that they heard about Bill and all then, and the time that they arrested them, it was like friggin' 2 hours, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was, in a long 5-day period. You know what I'm saying? She says, yeah. You say, so that's it, And then she says, well, obviously Bill and them must not be saying anything, or we would have been arrested already. You say, well, I don't know what they're saying. Cecilia says, yeah. And you say, that's the thing. They're saying that we knew, and the police can bust us because we're saying that we didn't know.
Right.
And that's it. You know what I mean?
Is this a question?
Yeah, the question is she's saying if Bill and them are talking, you'd be arrested, right?
Exactly.
Now, how would Cecilia know that if Bill and them were talking, that you would be arrested?
Because I told her that Bill knew that I knew about the murder.
Oh, now you're telling us that you told her that Bill knew that you knew about the murder.
Exactly. I told her I knew about the murder beforehand, and
Okay.
if Bill committed the murder, then obviously I would have known, and Bill would have known that I knew.
But knowing about the murder beforehand doesn't necessarily make you involved.
I think it does.
Okay. So what you're saying is now, you're saying to Cecilia that you not only told her that you knew, but you also told her that Bill knew you knew, and then when Cecilia was saying this, you're saying to her, or she's saying to you that if Bill talks, he's going to inculpate you.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really well the way this works. I mean, that no matter what Cecilia Pierce says, you're able to talk about it in such a way that the two of you know exactly what you're talking about, but you never really had any detailed conversations about what you actually knew, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you only told Cecilia Pierce that you knew about the murder and that you told Bill you knew about the murder, and nothing more.
Right. If you notice on the tapes, she's the one talking about all the details of the murder, and I'm sitting there agreeing.
Okay, the jury heard the tapes, and they'll make that decision of what is actually said and who's doing all the talking and who is just sitting there answering questions. And they'll listen to that, right?
Yes, they will.
Okay, are you afraid to let the jury do that for themselves?
Absolutely not.
So now, Cecilia Pierce is telling you, if they're talking, we would be arrested, right?
Right.
Okay, so obviously Cecilia Pierce in your mind must have an incredible fear that Bill and them have detailed information about her involvement.
You'd have to ask Cecilia. I don't know what her feelings were. I can only comment on what mine were.
All right, will you tell me what you think it meant when Cecilia said if Bill and them were talking, she was going to be arrested?
I would object, Your Honor, cause of speculation.
Explains her actions and tapes, Your Honor, on the tapes and her conduct afterwards.
Objection's overruled.
Tell us what you thought it meant.
Specifically what, again?
Specifically,
Yeah, what?
a person tells you that if the guy in jail starts talking, I'm going to be arrested. What does that mean to you?
That she had some involvement.
Okay, she had some involvement. She knows probably a lot more about this murder than you thought of before, right?
Right, I didn't know how much involvement, but
Okay, so after June 19th, you don't go and tell the police that night, my lord, I can solve the murder. Let me tell you what Cecilia just told me, right?
no, I was thinking about trying to get a hold of Bill because I wanted to confront Bill with the information Cecilia had given me and see if he would tell me whether or not he had done it.
I mean, didn't you think that'd be very suspicious? I mean, here you are worried about the affair coming out, and you're telling this jury what you were going to do is go see your ex-lover who's in jail, arrested for the murder of your husband, and have a visit with him?
That's exactly why I didn't go there, and I was trying to think of a way to contact him without being that obvious.
Okay, so you were going to, how are you going to do that?
I was thinking of ways to do it, and I did do it by sending a tape over to
So
you.
that tape that Bill referred to with that letter was from you, right?
Yes, it was. And I knew when he got it and he played it, he would know that it was from me, and I was hoping that he would call me so that I could talk to him, but he never did.
So your ex-lover, who killed your husband, who's now in jail, and who's testified he got the tape from you, and you can't dispute that because the letter exists, you're now saying, oh, yeah, I sent that, but clearly for innocuous reasons. I mean, right?
The reason being what I just said.
Yeah. I mean, when does your loyalty switch? When does your loyalty switch away from your embarrassment, away from your affair, away from keeping this quiet from everybody and letting the world decide what really go on here? And when does it switch to solving the murder of your husband, which you said and professed many millions of times was the number one thing on your mind? When does it switch?
That was part of the whole thing.
The only time it switched is when you came into this court.
No.
I mean, you didn't tell any of the police prior to your arrest about it, right?
Greg was dead. I didn't feel like dragging either one of us through the
I
mud.
see. So Greg was dead, so no longer mattered. Is that it?
No, that's what mattered.
That mattered more than anything that Greg was dead, but not that much, though, really.
That mattered more to me than anything.
Okay. It mattered more to you than anything, so explain to us, again, why you're worried about embarrassment and you're worried about being exposed about having an affair. Took precedence over you telling the truth.
Because I was confused and I was stressed out. I had no information at all. And when something like this happens, people don't always act correctly. They don't always act rationally. And I used very poor judgment, and I'm sorry for that, but I did not have anything to do with the murder of my husband.
And honesty is the best policy in your book, right?
Apparently not always.
Now, very next day, you have a full opportunity to talk to the police, right?
Contact that I initiated, yes.
You initiated?
Yes, I did.
Okay, they wanted to talk to you about the certification hearings coming up, correct?
I called them up and asked them why no one was talking to me about anything since the kids had been arrested, and how come I had no information once again.
But June 20th is when they came to you and talked to you about maybe having to testify
Right.
at a certification hearing, right?
Because I said I wanted to help in any way in getting them certified as adults.
Right, because now you want to get Bill Flynn, right? And then we just said you wanted to do
Yeah.
anything you can to get them certified as adults, right?
If he murdered Greg, I wanted him in jail.
Right. And if he was going to be certified as adults, the full thrust of the criminal justice system would be thrust upon Bill Flynn, right?
Yes?
And that's the same conversation we talked about yesterday. When they said, we need a little help on the motive here, you said, beats me, guys.
Right, because I did not think that an affair was a motive for murder.
I mean, so you now, not only are you talking two different things to Cecilia about pretending you're involved but telling her not to go to the police to save the affair, you're also telling this jury that you really wanted to get them certified and you wanted to help in any way that you can, and you keep saying that you want to go to the police and tell them and be helpful. At the same time, you're telling this jury you're not going to tell them what they need to know. I mean, you're making that decision.
Right.
Because if you told them what they knew, what you knew, they'd find out the connection to the murder, wouldn't they?
I think they had pretty much established that.
They'd already pretty much established your connection to the murder?
They had established that I had an affair.
I'm sorry?
They had established that I had had an affair.
So on June 20th, they already know. Is that what you're telling me?
I think they did.
So did you ever say to them, hey, you know about my affair? I'm really making some mistakes here. I'm really screwing up. Let me come clean with you. Did you ever tell them on June 20th? Yes or no?
No.
In fact, they asked you about Cecilia. In fact, they didn't even ask you about Cecilia. You went out of your way to talk about it.
Right. I wanted to try and throw them off the track of her.
And the reason you want to throw them off the track is because you haven't quite finished your own little investigation yet, right?
Exactly.
It's now a month and a half that Greg has been murdered, and you, Pamela Smart, your own investigation is just getting underway and you need more time.
Exactly.
Did you think you could do it better than the police?
I didn't care.
So what were you going to do if you finished your investigation? Cecilia told you she was involved. Bill Flynn tells you he's involved. He says straight to your face, Pam, I loved you, so I killed him. What were you going to do then?
I would have gone to the police.
Only then would you have gone to the police, right?
Right. I wouldn't have believed it unless I heard it from Bill's mouth.
All right, so your excuse to this jury of having never helped the police with this information is strictly because you hadn't finished your own investigation, right?
And I told this jury that I didn't want the affair to come out.
I know, and that's obviously, given the choice between telling what you know, let me rephrase this. In every circumstance we've seen over the past 2 days, when it's come to a choice between exposing you in embarrassment with this affair, helping anybody, families understand this murder, the police investigate and start putting the pieces together, the affair always is won out.
I was not convinced that Bill did the murder, so that's not even a choice that I made.
Yeah.
Because if I was convinced that he did it and then I didn't talk about the affair, then that would be different than the fact that I wasn't convinced that he did it.
Are you done? Now, the question is, did the affair always win out? Yes or no?
That was a constant struggle in my head. Not always.
Okay, so tell us when you decided to tell what you knew instead of keeping the affair secret up until June 20th.
No,
you said
I
the
didn't.
affair didn't always win out. You tell us.
I didn't. There wasn't
Sorry?
a time. There wasn't a time.
Okay, so going back to the question, when the choice came down to whether telling of the affair or giving the police information. Up to this point, the affair always won out.
Yes.
So now you're talking to the police, June 20th, day after you talk to Cecilia Pierce on the phone, a few days after she first tells you all the information she has, and this is what you say to them. Page 45. Yeah, well, the only concern I really have, honestly, is I don't know if I agree with how poor Cecilia is being treated in all this. I really don't know that I agree with that. I mean, Cecilia, I highly doubt had anything to do with anything about this. She's not even friends with those guys, with the exception of knowing them in school. I mean, she never went out with them on the weekends or, technical tears says, yeah, and you continue, anything like that. And I mean, this is all just way too hardcore for someone like her to be involved with. I think, and she keeps feeling like she's being, you know, I haven't talked to her a lot, but I've talked to her a couple of times that she's, you know, being accused of all these things that she doesn't know. And now her parents are like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk to Pam, you know, until this is over and all that. And I kind of resent that because, I mean, she's my intern, and yeah, school's over now, but... And then Danny Pelletier goes on to her being your intern.
Right. I just told you that I was trying to keep the police away from her.
Right, so now not only are you lying to the police by omission, by not telling them about the affair,
Right.
you are also consciously making an intentional decision not to be the truthful with the police about what you know about Cecilia Pierce.
Exactly. The
And
police
you're-
weren't truthful with me.
So on one hand, okay, the police aren't truthful with you.
They
I
weren't.
mean, why don't you tell the jury what the police asked you to do about talking to the press shortly after the murder of your husband?
About the press?
Yeah, what did the police tell you? Any one of them?
I believe Lauren Jackson told me that it wasn't a good idea to talk to the press and that one specific person.
And did they specifically tell you not to reveal details of the homicide because that would impinge on the investigation?
Right.
And within 3 days of your husband's death, you're on TV with Bill Spencer saying, this is a burglary, not a drug case.
Right, because everyone was saying that Greg was a drug dealer. And Greg was not a drug dealer. Greg was a good person. And I did not want him buried with people on the news saying that this must be a mafia killing and drug related and all these things.
So that was more important to you than letting the police do their job and figuring out who committed this crime.
Giving Greg some dignity, yes, that was more important to me.
You were afraid that if the police did their investigation, the dignity wouldn't come out?
Not then, you should have heard what the news was saying.
It was important to you at that time to make sure that you got your version out as soon as possible that this was a burglary.
That's what I was told by the police
And
it
you
was.
talked to Bill Spencer not only before Greg was buried, but you did a full 15-minute interview with him in your house 4 or 5 days after that, right?
Right, and I talked about Greg.
Yeah. And you also talked to the union leader, the Dairy News.
I sure did.
You talked to them all.
Yep.
And the police have been telling you not to talk to the press, correct?
They didn't say don't talk to the press. They said that sometimes the press mixes your words up, which I definitely learned that
And you
lesson.
disregarded all that.
Yeah.
No? You
Yes,
didn't
I
talk to the press?
said. I said yes.
Okay, so at some point after that, the press started saying, you know, we're not going to give you any more information at this point.
press?
You couldn't be trusted.
The press. or the
Please, I'm
press?
sorry.
Did they say those words to me? Is that what you're asking me? They never said
No,
those.
they didn't tell you, but I'm saying they stopped giving you information shortly after that, right?
They never gave me information before that. I found out, they didn't even tell me Greg was shot. I found out on the radio while I was driving down the road.
And that was what, the very next day?
Yes, that's how
When
I
the
found out.
autopsy report was released, right?
Right. And I'm the victim's widow, and I find out on the radio.
But they told you about their investigation in New Jersey, didn't they?
They mentioned something about being in New
And
Jersey.
they were looking at leads in New Jersey, right?
I think they said something about a gun ring or something.
And they also told you about investigating some people in Greg's past, Kim Silver.
Yes,
Okay, so they told you about that, right?
I told them about that.
They came to you, though, and asked you about it and told you what their investigation showed, right?
No, they never told me what their investigation showed, they just asked questions.
And they came to you and told you about it?
They asked me about it.
And did you ever go to the police and say to them after June 19th or during this interview on June 20th and say, look, I know you guys are a little annoyed at me, or I know you guys haven't been giving me stuff, but let's make some trades here. I got some great information. I'll give you my great information if you give me your information. Did you ever say to them on June 20th?
They didn't seem too concerned with anything I had to say.
They didn't? I mean, they talked to you for 45 minutes on tape. They didn't seem too concerned?
Yeah, about certification.
So you tried to tell them. Is that what you're telling this jury? You tried to tell them, but they
No.
wouldn't hear it?
No.
Okay. You're telling this jury they didn't seem too interested in information about who might have killed your husband. Is that what you're telling this jury?
They didn't seem too interested in my opinions or my theories on...
Did you offer the opinion that Cecilia Pierce knows about this crime?
No, I didn't.
You did just the opposite. I read it a second ago. You
Right.
did just the opposite.
Right, and I just said that.
Okay. And you know, you have to admit that because it's on tape, right?
I have to admit that because
And
that's
you
the
have
truth.
to admit to this jury that you were hiding the information about Cecilia Pierce from the police because it's right there on the tape. There's no way you could ever deny that, could you?
If I was guilty, I would have pleaded guilty and plea bargained with the rest of them.
Judge, strike is not responsive.
Jury will disregard that statement.
Your Honor, please rest a minute.
Now, your attempts to distract the police from Cecilia Pierce go way beyond your saying just that she's scared and I think she's being poorly treated, right?
Well, are you talking about a specific incident?
Well, I mean, when you talk to the police on June 20th, the very next day, you not only say that Cecilia Pierce is not connected to the crime, but you say that you counseled her to tell the absolute truth, right?
I said that to the police.
Well, let me read it to you. Page 48. Danny Pelletier says to you, but Cecilia's mother, getting back to that, thinks that we're treating her poorly, or thinks the police are. And you say yes. Yeah, Cecilia does too, I think. Danny Pelletier says, should leave her alone, or, it's inaudible, and you say, she feels like she's being accused and that she didn't do anything. And then I mean for a 15 or 16-year-old kid, I guess, you know, if you're accused of something that you didn't do, I mean, nobody, I mean, even me, I'm 22, I don't want to be accused of something I didn't do. But for a young person, I would think that that would be awful, especially if you see other people getting arrested, you know, that we're around you or whatever. I mean, it's probably would have to be scary, I would think. And the detective says, You say, you know, even if you're not guilty. And Danny says, well, she's just one of probably over 100 people we've talked to since, and you interject, right, I'll tell her that. And Danny says, since May 1st. And then you say, you know, I say they're just doing their job, and you know, just tell them the truth. And that's it. You just answer the questions and whatever. And she says, but I tell them the truth, and they tell me they think I'm lying. And you know, and I don't know what to tell you, Cecilia, you know, I can't control the police. I'm very sorry that this has happened to you. I mean, as far as the press goes, they're bothering me and calling my secretary. Now, you tell the police on that day that you've counseled Cecilia Pierce, tell the truth, just answer the questions.
Right,
That's a bold-faced lie.
right.
Just as the other thing about your information of Cecilia Pierce's involvement is a bold-faced lie.
Yes.
And you know that this is on tape. It has been on tape since June 20th, 1990, correct?
To audio tape?
Yeah, audio tape.
I guess, if you say.
Well, I mean, you know I can play it for you right now. You hear it, right?
I believe you.
Sorry?
I believe you. If
Danny
you
Pelletier can come in and testify about what went on that day, right?
right.
And on June 20th, were you trying to impress the police with your own honesty?
Was I trying to impress them?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, wasn't that the same day you said, You know, my honest to God's truth. I'm just going to tell you my honest to God's truth in this case.
Which is that I didn't think the 3 kids did it.
Okay, but then when it came to Cecilia Pierce, is your honest to God truth something you decided you no longer needed at the moment?
I got a page reference to that.
Right.
It's 32, 35, 37, your honest to God's truth. So, your honest to God's truth just switches as we go along.
Right then and there it did.
Okay? Now, police, you know, didn't want you really to talk about the investigation, right?
I don't know what the police wanted from me.
Well, how about some answers? Do you think the police wanted some answers from you?
After the arrest, no, because they didn't contact me till June 20th or something.
Oh, so because they didn't contact you right away, you decided the police must not want answers, so I guess I don't have to tell them about my affair with Bill Flynn or what Cecilia Pierce knows. Is that what
Yes,
you found?
I contacted them and I contacted the Attorney General's office. I believe I spoke with Diane.
And that gives you the right not to tell the truth. Is that it?
That does not.
Because you contacted the AG and you contacted the police, that gives you the right to say what's the truth and what's not.
No, I made a mistake.
You've made a lot of mistakes so far in this case.
I sure
haven't
have. Yes, I have.
you? Was killing your husband one of those mistakes?
No, it wasn't.
Getting a divorce, maybe that was one of the mistakes? You should have gotten a divorce, but you didn't?
No, I didn't want to get divorced.
I mean, it sure looks, you agree, you're trying to cover up what Cecilia knows from the police, doesn't it?
Right, because I told her that I knew something which I didn't really know.
You're playing a double entendre with something with Cecilia Pierce's mind, right?
I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It doesn't make sense to me
You know
now,
what you're doing now?
right this minute.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm telling the truth.
And you know that you're testifying at your trial in front of this jury, right?
Right, and
You know this stuff is on tape and has to be responded to,
I've
right?
been asked at least 4 times already, Your Honor.
Just gonna ask me that.
And you know that the other tapes that we haven't talked about yet, exist, and that's your voice on the tapes, right?
It sure is, and I don't begin to say to this jury that I can explain every action that I took between May 1st and now.
Right. And you didn't know at the time you were talking to Cecilia Pierce, she was wired, right?
The thought crossed my mind, but no.
And sometime after that, you found out she was wired.
Yeah, when I was arrested.
Okay?
Your Honor. And I just have 2 or 3 things to ask you about. Things that came up during the cross-examination. Yesterday, Mr. Maggiato asked you some questions about one of the state's exhibits, which is a little piece of note paper. You indicated they were the words to a song.
Yes.
Saw that?
Yes.
I think you told Mr. Maggiato that it was a religious song. Remember that?
Well, it's by a religious band.
Okay. Can you tell Mr. Maggiato and everybody else the name of the band, the name of the song?
The name of the band is Striper. The name of the song is First Love.
And now, did you have that record set?
I had the album, and I might have also had the CD, I'm not sure, but I know I had the album.
Okay, now are the words to the songs on anything that comes with either the CD or the record?
Yes, the words are on a lyric sheet inside the album.
Okay, and if someone were to look at that lyric sheet, read all the words to the songs on that album, would they be able to tell that that was a religious album?
Definitely, there's, on the outside cover, on the front and the back, there's references directly to the Bible.
Now, you also talked a little bit about insurance money with Mr. Maggiato. Before Greg died, did you know how much insurance you were getting?
No, I did not.
When did you come to find that out?
The exact amount, or?
Yeah, the amount of money.
I believe a week or so after the murder. Well,
Can you tell us how you came to find out?
okay. Obviously, after the murder, I was contacted by the insurance company to find out what was missing from the house for claims purposes, items that might have been stolen and things like that. And the insurance people who were doing the investigation were from Greg's office, so they were people that I knew. And we met, I believe, at the Smart's residence about a week after the murder. And I was told that there was one life insurance policy for $50,000, and that there was a group life policy, but nobody knew how much that was.
Okay, at some point in time, did you get any paper documents from the insurance company
Concerning the second policy,
concerning any of them?
I'm sure, I don't remember exactly what. I know I got something about the second policy.
Where did you keep those kind of documents?
In an expandable folder that we had with all the bills and
Okay, where did
car titles and things like that.
where did you keep that?
In the house, in a closet.
Okay, how long did it stay there?
It's been there for as long as we've lived together. Even when I lived in Florida, I had it.
Okay, at some point in time, you move out of Derry. What happens to the folder?
There were things taken out of the folder that I put into another folder that had to do with issues at hand as far as cars, like the four-wheeler that Greg had. There was information on that, the truck that he had, the insurance policies, and I had some, I think, newspaper articles or something, and I had those all in a tan folder.
Okay, where was that folder kept?
That was kept with me in my office, inside my calendar.
Okay, and again, where's your office?
SAU 21 building in Hampton.
Okay, and when you left the office during the course of the day, did you take that with you?
No, it was on top of my desk.
Now, you mentioned, and Mr. Maggiano had a question or two about it, that you were on medication during the point in time that the last two of these tapes were made. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Will you tell Mr. Maggiano what kind of medication it was?
I object. I had my opportunity. I'd rather she tell the jury, and the jury's the ones that have to decide. Mr. Toomey doesn't have to have her address her questions directly to me. This isn't a conversation with me and Mrs. Smart.
I'll withdraw it. I'll note that Mr. Maggiano shows how to ask this question. Go ahead. Would you tell the people in the jury what medication it is?
Prozac.
What is Prozac for?
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, why were you taking Prozac?
Judge, could we approach?
What's the objection to the program?
Well, I mean, she's not an expert. Are we going to have access to all her information that she was talking to her doctors?
I'll withdraw it. Go on.
All right.
On the last page of one of those tapes, you talk to Cecilia Pierce about where you're going after you see her. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
Is what you said to her then correct?
Yes.
True?
That I was going to the psychiatrist.
Right.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Maggi, no, strike it. Recall being asked about times when you might have asked for information from Cecilia on, I think it's July 12th.
Yes.
Page 19. If I may approach on. I'm now going to show you State's Exhibit 81 for ID. And ask you to take a look at the bottom part of that page. Page 19.
Yes.
Did you ask Cecilia, does that help you remember whether you asked Cecilia any further questions for information?
Yes.
What's all that about there?
Let me just back up here. I say, Cecilia says that Raymond had just gotten out of jail when he was looking for a gun. And I say, what for?
What does Cecilia say?
Cecilia says he thought that Raymond could get it for him.
What do you say?
What for?
Well, didn't you know Raymond was getting that gun for the first attempt to kill your husband?
No?
Did you take any part whatsoever in planning the death of your husband?
Absolutely not.
Further, thank you.
Ms. Smart, conversation on page 19 is when Cecilia told you that Raymond had just gotten out of jail, right?
I believe I say, did you know Raymond just got out of jail?
Well, Superior says that he just got out of jail. I'm sorry, did you know Raymond just got out of jail? And Cecilia says, yeah, I knew that. And you
Right.
say, for what? Okay? Would you
Right.
agree with me that that for what refers to why Raymond was in jail?
Right.
Okay.
I had heard Raymond was in jail, but I
Alright.
didn't know what for.
Now, the insurance policies you were talking about that was left on your desk, this is all before the murder, right?
Wait a second. I didn't say there was insurance policies left on my desk.
This billfold that you left on your desk.
No, that, you might, maybe I said
Maybe
it.
I misunderstood.
Right. What happened was that there was one insurance policy in the billfold, but that billfold itself stayed inside the house. There were things from that I took out in a separate folder and brought to work. One of those wasn't the insurance policy itself, but there was notes concerning insurance.
Okay, but
And
you...
phone calls and letters and things
I
like
mean,
that.
you would agree with me, it wasn't until you got the notice from Metropolitan Life Insurance Company that there was a group policy based upon your husband's salary that you learned the amount of the group policy, right?
Yes, I didn't know before the murder.
And that was after the murder, correct?
Right.
Okay, about a week or so is what you said.
A week or so I found out there was a policy, but I'm not sure I found out until, I think the letter came to me like in the middle of May that said how much it was.
Are you telling this jury that you're taking Prozac made you say what you said on the tapes on July 12th to July 13th?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Is that your voice on the tapes on July 12th and July 13th?
Yes, it is.
I have no further questions.
Dr. Rabbit, you may step down.
Defense would call Patricia McGinnis to the stand.